Hello, this is Andrew Mount for GG, here with a preview of Epsom's card on Saturday, a fantastic meeting featuring both the Derby and the Oaks. Now, we've teamed up with our friends at Betway to bring you this preview, and they've generously offered a free bet for GG customers, which you can claim by clicking the link below. Now, we start with the Woodcut Stakes at 150, a 7-furlong race for 2-year-olds won by Charlie Appleby's Pinatubo even last year. Now, Pinatubo was a rare Woodcut winner because he'd only had the one prep run. We go back to 2008, it's just 1 from 21 for those once raced individuals. So we're looking for a horse with experience who's had at least 2 runs here. Step forward and modern news for last year's winning yard. He was a winner at Newmarket on his debut despite being asked to come from off the pace and never easy to do on the Rolling Mile and being drawn towards the outside. Now, he was a shade disappointing in the Chesham at Royal Ascot next time, finishing 5th to Battleground, but he got no cover that day, and I think he's going to find today's test a little bit easier. So modern news for me in the opener. Moving on to the 225 and my strongest bet on the card, and that's Safe Voyage in the 7-furlong listed Surrey Stakes. Safe Voyage, trained by John Quinn, ran a cracker on his comeback when second to Space Blues at Haydock, also in a listed contest. Now, he's a 7-furlong expert and he loves going left-handed. His last 6 runs under these conditions, 5 wins and that next second to Space Blues. Now, Space Blues, of course, went on to follow up that win with a Group 3 success at Longchamp. And I think he's really going to take some beating here, Safe Voyage, because he's going to have the race run to suit. He likes to come late off a strong pace, and he's got pace angles in Jack's Point and Vale of Kent to tow him along here. The danger could be Oh This Is Us for the Hannon Yard. He likes the track, having finished placed twice in the Diomede Stakes, including last year, but that's over the extended mile, and he might find this 7-furlong trip a little bit too sharp, but I do think he'll be finishing to good effect, and I certainly wouldn't put you off the Safe Voyage Oh This Is Us computer straight forecast, which you can do with Betway, of course. Now, moving on to the 3 o'clock. Now, this is a 10-furlong handicap and a very interesting one. Mark Johnson is 0 from 14 in this race in the last 10 years, so perhaps avoid his runners. And I'm looking to the likes of Ironclad for Hugo Palmer, who's been gelded since his last run, and more interestingly, Breath Court for Rafe Beckett. Now, Breath Court made his debut for the yard at Newbury last time, finishing 4th. He'd previously been with David Simcock, and he seemed to blow up that day as though the run were needed. And I think, again, with a strong pace to chase, Breath Court's going to be finishing to good effect, and he should be an each-way price here. Moving on to the 340, it's the Oaks. And we don't often talk about the draw in 1.5-mile races, but we certainly need to do so with the Oaks and the Derby, because Stall 1 has got a terrible record over the 1.5-mile trip at Epsom, particularly in big fields. 10 or more runners this century. Stall 1 is 0 from 125. It's an odd one, the 1.5-mile start at Epsom, because although it's a left-handed track, it actually climbs and turns right-handed. So those drawn very low are on the inner and are going away from the sort of natural curvature of the track, and it can be very difficult to win from that inside berth. So we've only got 8 runners for the Oaks, though, but the draw is something I'll come back to when we look at the Derby later on. Now, the 2 who dominate the market here are Love, Aidan O'Brien's Charge, who was the winner of the 1,000 Guineas, of course, in particularly impressive fashion, and Frankly Darling for the John Gosden yard. Now, Frankly Darling was touted as Gosden's Oaks filly prior to winning at Newcastle on her return to action, and she franked that form in no uncertain style by bolting up at Royal Ascot. I was particularly impressed by that. And although Aidan O'Brien's won this 4 times in the last 10 years, it's not always been with his market leaders. He's had a winner at 50 to 1, 20 to 1 and 7 to 1. So I can quite happily leave Love alone around about the 11 to 10 mark and side with the second favourite here, Frankly Darling. Moving on to the 4:15, this is the Group 3 Princess Elizabeth Stakes, and a tricky contest here. But the one I do like, Cloak of Spirits for Richard Hannon. Now, she drops in class after finishing 5th to Alpine Star at Royal Ascot, and hopefully she'll settle better here than she did last time. So Cloak of Spirits in the 4:15. Now, the penultimate race, the 4:55, is the Investec Derby, and we've got 16 runners, and where's the favourite drawn? English King, Stall 1. 0 from 125 for Stall 1 over this course and distance this century. Do you want to back this one at a shortish price? not for me, despite the fact that he was very impressive when winning the Lingfield Derby trial. It can also be tricky for Store 2 runners as well, particularly in big fields over trip and track. Say since the start of the century, in fields of 12 or more runners, a mile and a half on Epsom, Store 2 is just 1 from 81. That's going to make life tough for Mogul as well. So we could see a bit of an upset, or certainly the current favourite and second favourite struggling. So I'm with Vatican City, another Aidan O'Brien runner. Got a really good speed figure from race form, went second to Siskin in the Irish 2000 Guineas. That's really strong form. And from stall 8, he should be able to get a good early position here. So Vatican City, my idea of the Derby winner. Moving on to the 5:35, very competitive 7 furlong handicap. And although last year's winner Corazon Espinado, who made all that day, is in the lineup again, I don't think he's going to get his own way in front this time. I think this will be set up for a closer. So I'm going to side with last year's runner-up Hetea for the local yard of Jim Boyle. Now, Hetea has got a good record here at Epsom, 5 runs, 2nd, 3rd, 6th when looking a shade unlucky, 1st, and of course that 2nd place last year. She has made the running on occasions, including when only 6th at Newbury on her comeback, but I think she's better coming late off a strong pace, and I can see her reverting to those tactics successfully here. So Hetea for me in the finale. That's it from me. I'll be looking at the Sandown Eclipse card later on. Until then, best of luck if you're having a bet, and if you're doing so, do it with Betway. Cheers.